Hello and welcome to the TPS podcast. This week we are ready to talk about some testing stuff. Now that we're in the thick of the off season, we have a lot of cool things to talk about: when to test, when to retest, what tests we're going to be measuring baseball players with, and a whole lot of other topics. But first of all, we have Kip Steingart as always, and today we are along with us hosting is Ryan Fitzgerald. How are we doing, guys?
Doing great. How's it going, Bill?
Doing good. Thanks for having me back on.
Doing good. So I guess Fitz, we can jump right in. As a guy who is always looking to improve exit velocity, bat speed, stuff like that, what are some things that you have noticed in your own testing over the years training that has improved and that has correlated pretty well with bat speed and stuff like that?
I would say the biggest thing for me is just training with max intent. I never used to do that as a kid. It was always like, hey, you got to move right. You got to, make sure you're doing this before you go hard. And it was like, no, I need to go fast and I need to go with max intent every time. And that's really the only way you're going to get to that top end.
Yeah, for sure. So like in your training, I know you test a lot of stuff. Like what are things that you're testing on a consistent basis to make sure you're going in the right direction?
Yeah, and with blast motion coming out, that was like huge for me. And I didn't really get into that until a couple of years ago. But being able to obviously test each swing with the sensor on your bat, as well as your rotational acceleration, your time to contact, like other small things like that. I was talking with one of my other hitting coaches about Nick Madrigal and how his bat speed isn't some crazy 80-mile-an-hour bat speed, but his time to contact is ridiculous. He's at top end speed, which is probably around 75 to 77 for him, instantly. He is there instantly. Whereas a Luis Robert, he gets up to 85 miles an hour on the bat speed, but he doesn't get there instantly. It takes time for him to get that up, which you can then see your swing decisions. It's it's a reason. That's the reason why Madrigal can hit the way he hits, is because he is instantly at top speed from the get. Whereas with Robert, he's going to swing and miss a little more and probably make a couple more chase decisions than Madrigal would, because he doesn't have that instant bat speed. But he's overall going to hit for more power because he has that 85-mile-an-hour bat speed out front, where he can miss hit balls and Madrigal can't necessarily do that. So being able to look at different things, general bat speed obviously is always going to be king. But how fast you get there, and what parts of the zone that you are having that bat speed in. Is it deep? Is it out front? All that stuff comes into play. So it's been cool to be able to see those metrics with the blast motion and kind of where your bat speed's at and how fast you can get to that top end.
Yeah, and I think now peeling back the layer of okay, how do we develop that bat speed and all those other things that we want to improve on the baseball field. Kip, we've ran a few combines now, and we've seen some good high school athletes come through. So I guess we could talk about the tests that we've come up with, and we could maybe talk about some of the kids that we've seen who really excel in certain things and how it correlates with throwing velocity and stuff like that.
Right. So a lot of our testing is pretty standard, right? We're going to do a 10-yard dash and a 30-yard dash because we want to get an idea of where the athlete is from an acceleration standpoint, as well as a top end speed standpoint, so we could better program for them and work on addressing their deficiencies. But Bill, you're pretty much the expert when it comes to rotational power development and some of the tests that you've started to administer that I've learned from you with the med ball work, and kind of how we differentiate between, whether we're using a 2-pound med ball, a 4-pound med ball, 6-pound med ball, 8, 10, whatever it may be, to see where an athlete is deficient, whether it's from a force production standpoint or it's from a pure acceleration standpoint. So can you kind of discuss what you like to look at from that standpoint? What are good metrics, and how do you like to go about programming based off where you see deficiencies in certain athletes?
Right, yeah. So what we'll do in those combines, we will go with a heavier ball like that 8-pound, like Kip was talking about, a 6-pound and a 4-pound, or a 6-pound, 4-pound, and 2-pound. Now we're looking at that whole force velocity spectrum. And we'll do that with a kneeling chest pass. We do it with a medicine ball shot put throw, so a rotational throw there, and then a medicine ball overhead throw where it's a standing step overhead medicine ball throw, kind of similar to a soccer throw in. And so looking at those different loads, like Kip was talking about, now you can start to see if this kid needs a little bit more strength training, a little bit more force production in their sort of high velocity movements. And, something that I have seen actually is a lot of younger kids are just absolutely terrible when it comes to that heavier medicine ball because they've never strength trained before. Yeah. So you talk about how strength training helps us on the baseball field. Well, you can probably just measure it with a slightly heavier medicine ball, and that would be a good representation of how strong they are and how much strength they need to really gain. But now, Fitz, turning it back to you, now we've been testing a handful of maybe some experimental type drills. Let's see, I know we've been doing the lead arm scoop toss, just focusing on that lead arm pulling through the zone. I think you've been able to achieve like upper 30s, like 37, 38 miles an hour with the 3-pound ball there. And then with like a 2-pound sort of scoop toss. Just yesterday we were throwing it for distance. How far did you get? You got like
45, I think.
45 feet with like an 8-pound ball. Yeah. And so now you're talking about like, you don't have to use only a radar gun. Like you can throw it for distance and you can see some really, really good results. But yeah, for the most part, I would say like the guys that are throwing those lighter medicine balls, like the 2, 3, and 4-pound ball, like 40 miles an hour, close to 40 miles an hour, they're the ones that are probably going to have that best like acceleration, like that really good ability to throw fast and get the barrel into the zone quickly. Whereas maybe someone who has that great top end speed would be able to throw that heavier medicine ball really well. And so this is something I've actually noticed too with my golf swings. Obviously a golf swing takes a lot longer to get to the ball than a baseball swing. And I'm able to achieve like 145, 150 miles an hour club head speed. But then when we swing the baseball type bats in a baseball swing, I'm not nearly as good. And when it comes to throwing the med balls, I'm really good with the heavy ones, really bad with the light ones. So that's just something to look at and why we test so many different weights of medicine balls the way we do. So I guess now sort of moving on, the next big topic is what or how often should we go about testing? Like you can't just keep on testing every day. The kid has to have some training involved. You know what I mean? So Kip, I guess I'll get your take here. Like how often would you say to reassess an athlete? If a kid wanted to sign up for a combine, let's say, like when should he sign up for that second combine to retest?
Just based off having discussions with you, I think we're in agreement that 2 to 3 months down the road. I think 3 months max is when we're going to want to typically retest guys and see what kind of progress we're making from a performance standpoint. Like you said, the goal isn't to test. The goal is to train to get better, not necessarily get better at the test, but to enhance performance. So even if you're going to look at like a monthly programming block, which typically is going to run anywhere from 4 to as many as 6 or 8 weeks, then I like to kind of test certain things at the end of a 4 or a 6 week block to monitor progress. But I would say 6 weeks to anywhere from 6 weeks to 3 months max is a pretty good standard for measuring progress.
Yeah, I think that's perfect. And there are times like Fitz, obviously we measure for everything, but I think at that elite level, that's when you have to really start doing that, because it's like there are going to be days where you just don't have it, and you might be doing all the right exercises, but if you're fatigued or for whatever reason you're not getting the most out of those movements, you're not going to make a dent in your power development. So I think there are times, especially with those elite athletes, where testing is concurrent with training. It's just we're doing it to make the training more effective for you. But kind of turning the page now of like how much progress is really realistic. Like obviously for more of an elite ball player, a guy who's very highly trained, you're not going to make very rapid progress the way you might have when you were a little kid. Whereas, some of the younger kids we see, I mean, they're just entering puberty and stuff like that. Like they're going to probably throw 5 to 10 miles an hour faster next year just by proxy, just because they're getting bigger and they've never trained before. So I guess a little anecdote on that. I saw a kid, been seeing him for a couple months now, Danny. And little Danny, he's like a 12-year-old, and he's had a busy fall. He's had football, he's had basketball now. And so his training, he's only been able to stick to maybe 2 days a week at most. Like it's been super busy on him, but he has been able to stay consistent with it. And I think on his kneeling chest pass we tested, he went up 3 feet on everything. okay, over 2 months, that's not a ton for a little kid. Like you would hope for a lot more, but that's still progress. You know what I mean? I don't know. Have you seen any sort of like what do you expect to make in your off season? Like how much are you looking to gain?
Yeah. Well, just quickly to touch on kind of what you said, like when you're younger, you're gonna make much bigger gains than you will when you get older, obviously. But like, I mean, I hadn't started like training like for real. I mean, I thought I was doing the right shit back in college and all that, but like when I started to figure it out when I was 22, 23 after I got out of college, like that was when I started seeing like real gains. Because that was when I started to try to train with max intent, like max intent swings. I mean, at 2019, I had like an average in-game bat speed of like 66 or 67, something like that. Which like, okay, it's fine, but it's not great. And then you just kind of see like where I'm hitting balls. It's like I'm hitting more balls, oppo, letting balls get deep. And it's like, am I successful? Sure. Am I going to get paid a lot? Probably not. So like, then I started realizing, okay, like how am I going to start hitting bombs? Like how am I going to hit doubles? And that's when I came to bat speed. I mean, I made I made gains to like probably 72 on average now. Like 5 mile an hour in like 2 years is like pretty good. So like what I'm looking for this offseason is literally just make a 2 to 3 mile an hour average jump in bat speed and sit around, if I can, like 75 to 76. And then have my bad swings be 70 to 72. The ones that you're adjusting to a curveball or whatever it is.
Yes. So you said your goal is to kind of sit around the 75, 76 bat speed in season. Like what are you doing from like a standpoint to monitor those things on a daily basis? And of course, it's a hell of a lot more challenging to make gains during the season because of course you're playing every day than it is compared to the off season where you might have a little bit more time to get the proper rest and recovery in between training sessions. But what is your approach when it comes to monitoring these things and making sure you maintain and you're not dropping off?
Yeah, like I said, with technology, obviously it's a lot easier these days. You can see all your in-game ball metrics, and you can wear your blast motion in game, so you can get all your bat metrics and see what's going on in game. You can use it obviously in practice. But I was talking to you, Bill, kind of about like the whole nervous system thing, like not letting your nervous system get fried. Obviously, it's going to get fried a little bit during the season, but being able to monitor that is huge. And like having even just the stuff we have in here, the push band, the stuff like that, and the bar speed sensors, like seeing like it's like I probably will always be able to deadlift 405 at any time, but like I never know how fast I'm moving it unless I have a bar speed sensor on that, and that'll kind of tell me a little bit about where my nervous system's at. But like I always go back to the bat speed and I check that before every game. I'll get off the machine, check my bat speed, see where we're at. And then if it's not quite where I need it, and there's a couple things I might try to do, like with med ball deceleration stuff or just chucking stuff as hard as I can into a wall. Just little things like that to just try to get my body to get to where I need it to get to. I know we talked about the rest and the recovery. The only real way you're gonna recover that nervous system is sleep and nutrition. So just having a handle on that, is absolutely huge.
Yeah, I feel like we touch on that topic almost every single week, and it's because it's important, for those high school kids. Like we cannot stress enough how important it is to get good sleep and great nutrition. Like it's non-negotiable. You will not make this type of progress if you're slacking in those departments. But I guess that all being said, kind of turning it to a high school kid, how much progress would you guys say is realistic to make in the weight room? Like for me, I think a goal I usually have for a kid is like, okay, let's say you can do 15 push-ups this month. We want to try to add 5 to 10, over the course of the month, like something like that. Maybe if you're doing a weight training exercise with a certain weight for a set of 3, we should be able to get maybe a set of 5 to 6 by the end of the month. So adding 2 to 3 reps, maybe adding 10 to 15 pounds of load, and like those big exercises, not like the smaller shoulder care ones. But I guess, Kip, like what do you try to usually push for? Like if a kid is deadlifting, obviously you got to have good form. That's non-negotiable. But like, or like what would you say is realistic for a kid to put on over the course of the off season on like their deadlift if they're really serious and recovering well?
Realistically, if we have a solid 6 months of an off-season training program, which we do with the majority of their guys, and they start off by pulling say 230 off the ground with a hex bar deadlift, and realistically, we can put easily 100 plus pounds on their deadlift over the course of a 6-month period. If you think that we gradually want to add, say, 5 to 10 pounds, I think on a weekly basis is a very gradual improvement in kind of those gains. So, over the course of a month, you're looking at anywhere from, like I said, 20 to 40 pounds over the course of a month. In a matter of 6 months, well, then that adds up to being well over 100 pounds. So that's kind of the way I've been guiding and directing guys. And like you said, breaking down in technique and form is non-negotiable.
Yeah, and so we actually just saw Flaherty. He came in and granted, he's coming off of like a knee injury too, and he's healthy and everything. He's good. He's cleared to deadlift and everything like that. He's been doing it. I think he pulled 405 off the ground like super fast, like almost 3 meters a second faster than you and whoever else was deadlifting that day, Fitz. So extremely strong kid. And I remember him, in high school, seeing him play. He was not nearly as big and strong as he is. So now you fast forward 3 years, that's the type of progress that is realistic. Right. It can happen. It's just you got to do so many things well. You have to take your lifting seriously and all that.
Yeah. And you talk about Flaherty. Look, he's a guy that I've been working with for the last 4+ years. We're going into our 5th off season together, and I always use him as an example to the younger guys that we work with. It's he didn't get to a point where he was able to pull a 600 plus pound deadlift for 5 reps off the floor. We can also have a discussion about how strong is too strong. There's obviously a point of diminishing returns where you might be taking away from other qualities like speed and acceleration. So once you hit a certain metric, well, now it's time to kind of dial back and focus more on that speed strength end of the continuum, where we're breaking out the bar sensors we're monitoring bar speed when he's pulling with the speed deadlifts. But the good thing about being too strong sometimes, especially when he had a setback with a knee injury, which was his second surgery over the course of the last 3 years. He's 5-6 weeks post-surgery. He had so much strength reserve in the tank that he didn't necessarily lose any strength whatsoever. So, like you said, fortunately, he was able to pull 400 plus pounds for pretty solid bar speed. Yeah. So that's what we like to see.
Yeah, what an impressive athlete he is. But we see a kid who has done it, has gone from that high school age to being able to hit 110 exit velocity. Obviously, Fitz, you're in that realm as well. So it's like we see athletes every day who can do it. It's just there are so many things that you have to stack up on a daily basis, weekly basis, monthly basis, and measuring consistently really does help keep you on that type of a track. So
something else too, though. I mean, like Flaherty, obviously, I don't think I'll ever be able to pull 405 as fast as he did. It's not going to happen. But that doesn't mean you can't hit 110 exit velocity. Like I still do it.
Right.
He can do it and I can do it, but we can't lift the same.
Yeah.
There's other pieces to it. Like it's not just one thing. Oh, I got to reach 405 at whatever the speed is. It's like there's other ways to get there, and there's other ways to compensate. Athletes are the best compensators, and there's other ways to do it. So so kids understand that.
Yeah, and I think that's why we were so adamant about testing a lot of different things in like the performance combines and in our our own athletes that we're testing and stuff like that. Like you can't just test the deadlift or a jump. Like you have to test the whole 9 yards. You have to see what their upper body power is at different loads. You have to see how well they rotate and all this other stuff, because there are things that you do, Fitz, that are elite compared to everybody else as far as rotational exercises are concerned. That's how you develop your bat speed. You know what I mean? So there are a lot of other areas, as you said. I think now kind of turning the page to the last idea here. So like when you measure, it allows you to have this insight into where to make changes in a program. Like we talk all the time about progressions. A progression isn't just about changing an exercise from a med ball shot put throw to a hook 'em figure 8 shot put throw. We have to have some sort of measurement that shows the progress is being made with this new exercise. So maybe we're making the exercise more challenging, so the velo might not go up right away, but because it's a more challenging stimulus, now we're talking about this progression is helping us make progress. And I know, Kip, you talk a lot about progressions as well, so maybe you can touch a little on that topic.
Right, and going back to the previous example, a progression too a deadlift where we're just training for purely strength, a progression to that could be working on the other end of that strength speed continuum where we're focusing on bar speed. But again, you have to have all these different prerequisites in place as far as establishing proper technique, knowing how to hinge, knowing how to brace effectively, knowing how to lock out effectively, knowing how to reload effectively. And then from there, we could start talking about doing some more advanced things and some cooler things as far as pulling with speed and then pulling against bands or even chains. But again, we have to have those things in place where we're monitoring proper bar speed to ensure that we're not detraining the athlete or we're going down the opposite end of the continuum, or we're training for more strength. But then you look at something as simple as like a split squat. Well, then we're always going to start progressing by just doing a basic isometric split squat, where we're going to work on building proper stability and control throughout the movement, and then eventually you don't even have to progress to an actual split squat. You could learn to load that position effectively, and then you can get into slow tempo work before you get into actual more of a controlled rep range where you're training for strength or you're training for mass. So there are so many different routes that we could go down as far as the exercise is concerned. It's just a matter of where is the athlete in their current development and what do we want to address as far as an adaptation standpoint is concerned. And that's going to be what's going to guide you from a programming standpoint.
Yeah, and I think now kind of like last little thing to touch on, we see so often in like the baseball world, whether it's travel ball, high school, even college, where so many kids are doing the exact same thing as everyone else. And that's at some point, like early in a kid's development, that's fine. Like you're going to see progress. But I think no matter what you're doing, whether you're doing the same workouts as everyone else, or if you're doing an individualized program, like having measurements to show that you're making progress is huge. And I know, Fitz, you went through the whole travel ball thing as a kid. Now you're in pro ball and stuff like that. So along the way, what were some sort of like potholes? What were some things that you felt like, man, this sucks? Like, go ahead, you can elaborate on that.
I mean, that might be for a whole other podcast. I could go on all day about that. But I mean, just growing up, I was always a kid that was, I would say, overcoachable. I listened to what the coaches said, even though most coaches didn't have any clue what they were saying. And I did it, and I think it was detrimental to me. And if I didn't figure it out at the time I did, the year if I figured it out a year later than the year I did, like I don't think I'm playing baseball today. But yeah, I mean, growing up and the whole elbow up and swing level and swing down, and it's like, yeah, I did it all. I remember I would hit with my dad sometimes, and I just crushed balls like right into the ground. I'd be like, why'd that go into the ground? I did exactly what I was supposed to do. Swing down, swing level, like I barreled it up. It was right in the ground, and like they had no answer for me. It was like, swing more level. It's like, well, okay, well I can't swing any more level than I'm swinging. But yeah, like learning to hit the ball in the air. If I learned that at a younger age, and I think it's starting to change. I mean, being around some younger kids, like most of them are getting balls in the air now, and understanding that that's where the game is at, and that's how you get paid. That's how you make it into college baseball and even high school teams, and then obviously playing professionally. I mean, that's what teams are looking at is how, are you able to get baseballs in the air, which has been huge. But going back to like the progression thing, I mean, I've spent so much time hitting off a tee and hitting off of flips and just easy stuff. And even as a kid, like you can crush that. Like that's not hard at all. I never hit off of a machine, and like never wanted to be challenged, because it's like, oh, God forbid you miss and you swing and miss 5 times in a row, and it hurts your ego a little bit. But I mean, it hurts the coach's ego too, because they don't want to see you fail, and it's they feel like it's their fault when you fail, and which I guess would be a sign of a good coach. But I think failing would have been huge for me as a kid. Like practice would be failing. 3 out of 10 swings I'm successful. Like I need to be challenged. I need to swing and miss. And I think that would have set me up way better for college. And then obviously you get drafted, which never happened. But I mean, that's the way my training is nowadays. Like I want to fail, 5 to 6 times out of 10 swings. Like that's what I want.
Yeah, I mean, we just had 2 kids, they're freshmen right now, that were hitting off of a machine throwing 85 yesterday. They got gassed up. I think they might have made good contact on 2 balls out of their 40 swings that they had. Like it was bad, and yeah, sure, they're probably frustrated, but I'm like, look, and I've even told college kids who sucked off the machine this, like, hey, look, in 2 months, you barreled up 2 balls out of 40 swings today, you're going to be at 20 out of 40 by the end of the offseason. If you can do that, you are a much better hitter than you are today. And so that goes back to that same concept of measuring. It's not we're not measuring every swing that the kid takes in here, because I don't have that type of technology right now. But the reality is, like, we're not measuring spray charts and stuff, but we are trying to keep like a track of your progress. It's not just mindlessly doing the same crap over and over. We're trying to make it tougher on you. And when it's tough today, 2 months from now, it'll be easy. You know what I mean? And I think that's, at the end of the day, that concept can go to so many different areas in training. Yeah, so I think this is a great podcast, guys. I know we have a lot more topics that we can cover in the future about travel ball and baseball and all this other stuff, but I think for today we'll wrap it up. Anything else from you guys?
I think we're good.
All good for now.
Awesome. Great stuff today, boys, and we'll talk to you again real soon.
All right, thanks, Bill.
Good shit.